Hey everybody, it's Mitch, and welcome to my next video. Today we've got another Dungeons & Dragons class description for you. And today, from the Complete Divine, we have got ourselves the Spirit Shaman. Right there. Alright, so today we are going to talk about what is the Spirit Shaman. We're going to talk about how you would go about role-playing the Spirit Shaman, like who they are as people, and the things you should keep in mind when playing this character. We're going to talk about what these guys get in terms of class features and mechanics and all that fun stuff. There's a lot to go over on that. And then we're going to talk about how good they are and how you might use them in a build. So let's get started. So the Spirit Shaman. It's an interesting one. It's a divine caster, just like the Cleric and the Druid, more so like the Druid. It's very much a nature-based caster. But it's different than the Druid in that it gets its powers from the spirit world, not from nature, not exactly from nature itself. It's kind of got its own unique thing where it's very much comes from spirits. It's very, very tied into spirits. Yeah, so that's, and they're actually a spontaneous caster in a way. So it's a very interesting it's a very interesting class. Very, very interesting. It's a lot to talk about with this. So let's talk about who they are as characters. So as characters, you see that they typically would go on adventures to advance the causes of the spirits that they worship. So yeah, if they're worshiping, helpful spirits, they're going to be on a mission to help people. If they are worshiping, evil spirits and vengeful spirits, they're going to be out for blood. It's really just depends on the spirits that they're attracted to. Let's see, characteristics. Let's see. Their alignment, it's similar to that of the Druid, except they only tend to be the Druid alignments, those neutral ones on that cross. They can actually be any alignment. It's not that uncommon for a Spirit Shaman to be like lawful good or chaotic evil, or lawful evil or chaotic chaotic good. So those are actual options for them, unlike Druids. It's not uncommon to see those. They're rarer, yes, but it's not that unusual. So religion, they typically don't worship religion. They tend to stick with, what they tend to just stick with nature worship and spirit worship. However, it isn't unheard of for them to worship like Obadhai or Alonha, because they are very much nature deities. So how spirit shamans come about typically is an older spirit shaman will teach them. So when an older spirit shaman feels that it's time to take on an apprentice, he will, and he'll find some youth to train to be a spirit shaman, and then that spirit shaman, under the guidance, will eventually be set out on their own to go explore and adventure and gain some experience before coming back to serve as the group's spirit shaman. Now, some spirit shamans are also reckless and impatient and abandon that training partway through to just set out on their own early. That's also something that happens. So yeah, definitely some interesting stuff there. They don't like clerics. They feel clerics don't really venerate the spirit world enough. They don't give its proper due diligence. Whereas they do like the druids because they both have that reverence for nature. So yeah, no special relation to any other class really. Their role, it's going to be very similar to that of the druid. Their spell list is the same as the druid. They get a lot of the same stuff. So they're going to be a caster. It's going to be based on their spells, really. It can be a support caster. They can do blasting. They can do a lot of different stuff with their spells since they have full access to the spell list. Though that is a bit complicated, and we will get into that. So when you're playing a spirit shaman, you are going to be very big on the spirit world. You're going to be talking about that a lot. You're going to constantly talking about your spirit guide, which you get. which no one else can see. You're going to be talking about all the spirits around you. Yeah, that's just something that you're going to be speaking of constantly, because it's very integral to who you are as a person. The spirit world is something you're strongly connected to, something most other players can't even see, and something that you can see and are strongly connected to. So yeah, you're really going to want to play that up heavy, as well as the spirits. It's a very natural force. It's the spirits of all things that living and dead, and therefore, especially since it's all things, you're going to be very connected to nature as well, typically. Especially the ones that are on the druid axis. Ones that are in extreme alignments like lawful good, chaotic evil, and the like. Those ones maybe a little less so. They're probably going to venerate nature a little less, but they probably still will to some extent. So yeah, that's how you would go about role playing them. You really want to focus on the spirit world and really just play that up as heavy as you can. So let's talk about what they get. This is going to be dense. All right. So first off, they get a D8 hit dice. Decent. They get an average base attack, which is all right. Good fortitude and will save, but a bad reflex save. So fairly solid chassis so far. Have a solid skill list with all the important skills that you're going to want. They also have 4+ int for skills, so that's actually solid. It's all right. It's not great, but 4+ int is pretty good for skills. Yeah. And let's see. They can be any alignment, so no alignment restrictions, unlike the druid. So very nice. Same with clerics, which have the alignment restrictions of having to stick towards their deity. Although I guess they can go for a cause, but still, these guys don't have any such alignment restrictions, which is nice. Let's see. Weapon and armor proficiency is weird. They get a random assortment of weapons that they're proficient with. None of them great, but some of them are okay. They also get armor proficiency with light armor and shields, so that's cool. But they're really not that great in melee combat. It's not their thing. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Here's the meat and potatoes of this. Spells. So they cast spells from the druid spellcasting list. They are also going to gain spells at the same rate as a cleric or druid will. They're going to, get the spells at odd levels. So at 3rd level, they'll gain 2nd level spells. 5th, they'll gain 5th, they'll gain 3rd, so on and so forth. So they're not going to be a level behind like a lot of spontaneous casters, or like most spontaneous casters. So that's kind of huge. Another thing, their spells, they don't exactly have spells known. They have spells retrieved. So every day when they're preparing their spells, they can't, or they're sort of prepare their spells. So every day they go and pick spells from the entire druid list and choose the ones that they want to have retrieved for the day. And those are their spells known effectively for that day. And then they can spontaneously cast whatever they want from that. Now, that's kind of cool. That's actually really, really big. The fact that they can change up their spells known daily. And they're a spontaneous caster. So that's actually massive. The catch to that is their spells retrieved is only half that of other spontaneous casters. So you are going to be a little bit behind. Like the most you'll ever know for any spell level is 3. So you're extremely limited in that. But you can change it up daily. So at any given time, you have less spells known than that of other spontaneous casters. But you can change it every day, unlike them who can only change like 1 every so many levels. So that's kind of nice. They can just the next day decide to know completely different spells. Another interesting thing, the way that they deal with meta magic is very unique. What they do is when they choose their spells for the day, They actually applied the meta magic at that time the same way a wizard would, like a prepared caster would, except they prepare it to their spells known. Like the example they give was a flame strike. They could do an empowered flame strike as one of their spells known, assuming they had the meta magic empowered feat. And then you casting that would not use extra time, but it would take up that higher level slot, and it would be empowered every time it was cast. So that's interesting. You can also get the regular version as well, but that would take up both a 3rd and a 6th level spell known. But it is something you can do. So that's very, very interesting. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting spell, a different interesting way they deal with spells, but quite potent. Another weird thing about it is it's a dual stat option, so they use wisdom to determine bonus spells and whether or not they can cast a spell or not, but they use charisma to determine how strong the spell is, so like the spell save DC. So honestly, you're probably better off buffing your charisma and just getting yourself up to a 20 wisdom and then going as high as you can on charisma. Because you want that 20 wisdom. You really only need 19 to cast all the spells. But I mean, if you want to go epic, you'll need 20. And on top of that, just getting that nice even number is nice because that is your will save. So you might as well take it up to 20 to get that extra point to will. Because will saves are great. Yeah. So that's their spell casting. It's a weird mechanic. They get a lot of spell slots as well. So they're going to have a lot of potency. The same as that of a typical spontaneous caster. So they're weird. They bridge the gap between spontaneous and prepared, but they are technically a spontaneous, even though they have a lot of elements of prepared in their methodology. Okay, so let's talk about some other things that they get. That's spell casting. So they get a spirit guide. So this spirit guide is something that exists purely in their mind. And that spirit guide is going to take whatever form they want. I assume it's fixed throughout, and it represents various different. It can represent various different aspects. You gain nothing from it. This is all purely flavor. It's all purely role play. But that's cool. Flavor and role play is awesome. But there's no mechanical advantage to which spirit guide you pick. There are some mechanical advantages to this though. They're also going to be what you use when you are spending your hour going out to prepare spells. So not to gather spells. So when you're spending that time, your spirit guide is not with you. He's out bargaining with the spirits for spells. So that's a thing. Yeah, and you have to pick a certain time of day every day to do that, just like other casters. So yeah, let's see. Or other divine casters. Pretty much all divine casters have to pick a set time of day to do that. Let's see. So wild empathy. They get wild empathy. It's the same as what a druid gets. If you saw my druid video, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that. It's a super old video, but it does talk about, I believe, wild empathy and how wild empathy is basically just allowing you to make diplomacy checks on animals. Not magical beasts, just animals. It's not quite a diplomacy check, but it's similar the way it works, but the check itself is class level plus charisma modifier is what you get. So that's cool. It'll be a little weaker because of that. So they get challenge spirits at 2nd level. Now this is nice. This is actually their version of Turn Undead, but it's a lot better. Aside from the whole, it's not Turn Undead, and there's all sorts of support for like divine meta magic and all that, which is in the same book as this. So if this is allowed, so is divine meta magic for the most part. Yeah. So chastise spirits. Basically, it's going to make it so you deal a bunch of damage, number of d6 for every class level you have, no cap, to all spirits within 30 feet of you. And what a spirit is interesting. So it's what? Corporal undead, fae, elementals, creatures in astral form with astral bodies, but not a creature physically present on the astral plane. Uh, excuse me. All creatures of the spirit subtype. So there's a lot of Oriental adventure stuff in there. Spirit folk and tethers, and spirit creatures. So those are all spirits, and they're all going to take this extra damage. Well, not extra damage, just damage from this. It can be used a number of times per day, equal to 3 plus your charisma modifier, very much the same as turn undead. Like I say, it's kind of the turn undead version, their version of turn undead. So DC 10, and they do get a will save, which is DC 10 plus the Spirit Shaman's level plus the charisma modifier to resist it. So that's a little different, but that save is going to be really hard to beat because it's plus your class level plus your charisma modifier. So if you're really getting that charisma up there, I've seen players get it as high as like a plus 10, plus 15. By 20th level, that'd be a solid 40-45 save. That's going to be really hard to beat. So very, very solid. They get detect spirits. That just lets them use detect spirits at will, which functions like detect undead except for spirits. Blessing of the spirits, that gives them a magic circle, not a magic circle, a protection from evil effect. Takes an hour to set up, but it lasts until you decide it doesn't last. So that's pretty nice. Yeah. It's a really good one. But it's not that great, but it lasts basically forever, and then you can just spend another hour setting it back up. They get follow the guide, so they can use their spirit guide to basically gain an extra attempt one turn later to break out of an enchant, any sort of mind affecting effect. So if they're under some sort of compulsion or something, they get out. They get Ghost Warrior. This one's actually really nice. Basically, it gives them some bonuses against incorporeal attacks. Makes it so that any sort of incorporeal creature attacking them doesn't get any of its buffs. And it just attacks their regular AC, not their touch AC. Doesn't get a lot of the downsides. It's really solid. Then they also get to add Ghost Ward to any weapon that they hold. So any weapon they hold while they're holding it has the Ghost Ward effect. So really nice. No, Ghost Touch, not Ghost Ward. Anyways, then they get Warding of the Spirits at 7th level. Basically, they can once a day they can do a special rite that lasts, what is it, a minute? And it'll lasts takes 1 minute, and it'll give them and all their allies protection from spirits, which is similar to protection from evil, for 10 minutes. Or 10 minutes per level, I think, or 10 minutes, or 10 minutes per level, yeah. So will last quite a while, and it's decent. So spirit form, this one's pretty good. So they can a few times per day, initially once, but it goes up to 3 times per day. They can take spirit form, which just lets them go incorporeal. Gives them pretty much most of the advantages of being incorporeal. This lasts for a while too, if I recall. Let's see. Let's see. Did a little. For up to 1 minute. So it lasts for a little while. It's not super long, but gives you a lot of benefits. Lots of stuff. Gives you like all the incorporeal benefits of being incorporeal, plus it gives you an incorporeal touch attack, which does 1d6 damage, which isn't a lot, but it's something. Yeah. Now at 10th level, they get one of their best features, and that's guide magic. Basically, they can have their spirit guide concentrate on spells for them. Now, one major advantage of that is the spirit guide is the one. The spirit guide isn't affected by you taking damage. The spirit guide would have to take damage himself in order to have to make a concentration check for taking damage. But the spirit guide only exists in your mind and therefore cannot be attacked by any means, and therefore is just immune from that part of concentration. So there's no way to force a concentration check to try and disrupt it. So that's actually kind of massive, really, really massive. It's also possible that you can have 2 concentration spells going at once. Have your spirit guide concentrate on one while you concentrate on another. So that's kind of big. Although the one you're concentrating on still, of course, would be affected by you getting hit. They also get Recall Spirit. Basically, it says it's like Raise Dead, but really it's a lot more like Revivify. Basically, it lets you do 1 free Revivify per week as a spell-like ability. So that's kind of cool. It's only once a week, but it's not. I don't think Revivify is a spell you normally have access to, so it's kind of nice to have, and it's a good spell. You get Exorcism. That's going to make it easy for them to expel creatures that are possessing others. Basically, they just make a check where they add their class, where they roll a dice, and then add their class level and their charisma modifier, and that goes against 10 plus the hit dice of the possessing creature plus that creature's charisma modifier, and if you win, you push them out. I don't think there's any limit on how much you can do that, but it is a full round action. So yeah, let's see. They also get Weakened Spirits. So when they're using their Chastise Spirits, they can choose to give up 3d6 damage to it in order to weaken this spirit for a round. They can do that they can do multiples of those, so they can give up 6 or 9 or 12 or whatever in order to do more rounds with the same abuse. So they'll take less damage, but should they fail their save, they're going to lose a lot of their buffs. They're going to lose spell resistance. They're going to lose they're going to lose their DR. They're going to lose a lot of the defenses that they have. Let's see. They lose spell resistance. They lose incorporeal creatures lose their incorporeal abilities, like their benefits of being incorporeal. They lose a lot, so this can be really potent, especially if you're up against like someone with a lot of defenses that are proving difficult. You can hit them with this and then blast them with a bunch of other stuff now that they're a lot easier to hit. It can be very, very potent, and it is a little bit of a risk because if they make the save, they don't take any of this, whereas if they make the save and you don't do this, they still take half damage. And they still will take half damage for any d6s left over that you're not using for this. But still, you are if they make the save, you're sacrificing damage for nothing. Whereas if they don't make the save, they fail that save, you're sacrificing damage for weakening them for a few rounds, which is actually really potent. And your save DC is going to be crazy, so it's not too much of a risk. 17th level, they get Spirit Journey, which basically just lets them transport themselves through the spirit realm once per day. This does seem a little underpowered on the surface, but the fact that it does allow you to go through the fact that it uses like the plane of spirits is actually potent. It'll help you get around a lot of obstacles that other methods wouldn't. So like it'll get around like force. It'll get around things like anticipate teleport, since it's not a teleport ability. Things that block access to specifically the astral plane. So yeah, there are some real advantages to this. Now they get Favorite of the Spirits at 19th level. This one's actually really nice. So it does cost a little bit to do, so they have to give up 1,000 experience every time they want to use this. And it takes 8 hours to do. But what it does is it makes it so that if they get reduced to 0 HP, or -10. Sorry, 0 HP or any ability score hits 0. They get the heal effect. They get hit with that immediately, which can make them survive attacks that they might not have otherwise survived. So that can be really big. And they can do this as much as they want. But it does cost 1,000 experience and takes 8 hours. So not practical to do in combat. But or even in the middle of a dungeon crawl, 8 hours is a long time, unless you have a way of accelerating time. But yeah. Then, of course, finally at 20th level, they get Spirit Who Walks, which basically makes their type change to Fey, and they get damage reduction, 5 cold iron. And that's basically it for that. That's all that they get. But whew, that was a lot to talk about. It's a very, very dense class, as you can see. Let's talk about how good they are. Well, they're quite potent. Their spell ability is very nice. The ability to cast spells spontaneously, but to change them up every day, really, really nice. The fact that they only get half as many spells known is unfortunate, but unlike a lot of other spontaneous casters, they do get their second level spells at third level, so that's nice. And of course, every other one they get at odd levels as well, so that's good. The method for how meta magic works with them is definitely unique. The fact that they can't put them on the fly is unfortunate, but the fact that they don't have the extra casting time is quite nice. So yeah, it's really solid in that regard. So I really like their casting mechanism. It's super, super good. The fact that it uses dual casting stats is unfortunate, but it is what it is. I wouldn't buff Wisdom too much personally, like I said before. Keep that in a nice solid 20, and then let go, and then just go crazy with your Charisma. And you don't have to have a 20 right away, of course. 20 is really high, but by 20th level, you want to get that up to 20. Actually, you probably want to get that up there by like 17th level, but it's not that hard. You can use magic items, all that fun stuff. Like if you're using magic items, you just need to get it to like a 14. Honestly, yeah, 14 would probably be good for what stat to put in there, and then you can just, get Periactive Wisdom. No big deal. But you want to go crazy on that Charisma. Most of your abilities are Charisma based. Your save DCs are for pretty much everything are Charisma based. So you really want to buff that Charisma up like crazy. Another flaw with this that isn't as much of a flaw as it is for a lot of prestige or a lot of these classes is because it's not core, it doesn't have a lot of support in other books. However, the reason why this isn't as much of a flaw is it really doesn't need a lot of support. This is actually a class that you might want to just take 20 levels in and not multi-class at all. There's real reason to not do that. A lot of their abilities that they get at high levels are great. And even the stuff that they get at lower levels, like Chastise Spirits, it's much better if you continue with this class and don't multi-class at all. Especially with when you tack on Weakened Spirits. And getting that 10th level magic guide really nice. It gets so much good stuff that it's really worth it to just go 20 levels in this, I think, and just not multi-class at all. Or at least not until maybe you hit Epic. But even then, like, you probably should just keep going at it. I don't know how much of this will continue going, probably a bit. But even so, you're going to get bonus Epic feats for taking an Epic class, which is something that people who multi-class generally never get to do. So that is one big advantage of that. So really, this is a class you probably don't want to multi-class with. You just go straight Spirit Shaman and call that it. That's really the best way to play a Spirit Shaman, as far as I can see, is it's just Spirit Shaman, nothing else, just a pure Spirit Shaman build. It's good. It's a really good class. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I always love hearing from you. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like. Maybe subscribe to the channel for more D&D 3.5 content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on a video. Anyways, as always, I'm Mitch. I'll be seeing you